Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. The release of this here has caused a little bit of fracture over the community, and I thought I would tread in dangerous ground and talk a little bit about it and some of my thoughts on it while I build some of the miniatures. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description. Now, it's not my intention to try and jump on the back of the drama. There's been quite a few videos around the time of people very upset, people that were happy, people that were just trying to make content, and a few people afterwards now almost jumping on the tails of the drama. And that's not what this is about. Those of you who've watched my paint and chats, it's just me chatting a little bit about a certain topic while I do some hobby. It's just a fun way of presenting something like that. And I used to play Heresy, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my sort of intro to this. So I'm not here for the drama at all. I'm not here to try and just get clicks from it. I just genuinely had some thoughts and things that I really wanted to get off my chest, and I appreciate that's probably going to get this video loads of dislikes and lots of frustrated comments below. I'm aware of that. I'm ready for it. I will deal with it as and when it comes along. So anyway, let's get started. I'll do some building and I'll chat a little bit about my thoughts on the whole release of Horus Heresy 3.0. First up, I'm not going to get into the detail of all of the arguments. You can go and find those. I'll touch on some things, but I'm not going to go and show you screenshots of what people have said. I did consider it actually, because some of the things I've seen posted, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, were pretty poor in my opinion. But again, I don't really want to draw anyone into this, even with their names blanked out. I thought I'd talk about it from a slightly more macro level, though I will mention some individual things. But we've known this release has been coming for a very, very long time. I think it's been one of those worst kept secrets, and nothing is kept truly secret anymore. It maybe came a little bit earlier than some people thought, including myself, with lots of old world stuff happening earlier in the year. I thought this might be a Q3 or Q4 release, but we knew it was coming. Loads and loads of articles about it leading up to it, far more than there is for old world stuff. Loads and loads of things. So they're quite clearly been preparing the player base and new players for it. And a lot of articles with an awful lot of detail in there. Some things that maybe were missed later on because of the sheer amount of it, and I'll come back again to some thoughts around communication from Games Workshop. But all in all, looking at what I've bought, and I've purchased these myself, I am on the creator program with Games Workshop. I don't get Heresy stuff at the moment, I get old world stuff mostly. So I've bought all this myself, and part of me made me glad I didn't get any of this for free and made content on it based on the reaction towards some content creators as well, and that's something else I'm going to be covering in the video. Now, I've not played Heresy 2nd edition at all, but I did play 1st edition and the 1.5 that came later. I ran a podcast with my friend Tom, called Geno52 Podcast, for a number of years, and had loads and loads of fun doing it. We run a number of events at Incorn Gaming. That's us in our shorts handing out awards after one of the events. Now, Tom did most of the work for those events, but they were big events that were well followed, and we had a good listenership and really enjoyed being part of the Heresy community. And I also painted a lot of Heresy stuff, be that for myself or commissions. I think still up to now, 50% in total, if not more actually, maybe even as much as 70% of my commissions since I've been running my business for a number of years now, more than 10, have been Heresy based commissions. So a lot of the pictures you've seen, just random ones I found on my phone, are other people's armies, but there are also things included that were from my own collection as well, and I had lots of Heresy armies, of which I have all sold since when I stopped playing and moved away from the podcast. And I love Heresy. I read all the books long before I started playing, well, read all the novels that were out at that time, and really, really enjoyed them, and actually brought me back into Warhammer fiction, because I thought the quality of them was so much better than some of the things that were around at the time. So I do have history with Heresy. I'm not just coming here as a bit of a passenger jumping on the tails, and I wanted to add that little bit of context that don't know me or know the past before Miniature Realms as a YouTube channel. I think I always intended or thought that I'll come out to Heresy at some point. That second edition didn't really do it for me. And I've watched along and always enjoyed painting the miniatures, and still enjoyed listening to and reading the books as and when they've come out. I've listened to them all, barring a few shorts. So I still enjoyed engaging with it, just not really as a wargaming hobby. First of all, we had the Saturnine leaks, the potato can pictures from someone who obviously had a stolen box from somewhere in the supply chain. And from that point on, I knew deep down I was probably going to pick up the box. And I like the idea of making some content, and that's all I intended to do with it. And that's probably what I'm going to do with the box. You can see me building here is painted as one single army project and make one single video from it. And how far I go content on the channel beyond that, I'm not sure. We will just see how it goes. I was definitely put off a little bit by some of the community reaction, which I'm going to be talking about here, at least towards content creators. And I also appreciate that by talking about content creators from a content creator's perspective, it's probably going to draw some criticism from people who don't like content creators and the fact they get stuff early. And one of the major things to do with this whole sort of drama around it was a focus on one poor content creator and maybe a couple of others as well. But anyway, before we get into that, I decided I was going to probably pick up the box. So I started rejoining some of the Facebook groups that I hadn't been part of for quite some time, and looking at posts online and trying to sort of get in with the excitement that usually builds up towards a new release. And most of it was the usual stuff you'd expect. Some people were really excited, some people all doom and gloom before they've even seen any rules. Loads and loads of articles on Warcom, quite a lot of detail, which I thought was really good. And all in all, it seemed pretty good. Lots of the game's not changed too much, and I didn't really have an opinion either way because I hadn't played second edition. I wasn't a huge fan of the first edition. I'm never a huge fan of 7th edition 40k. I played the game from a narrative perspective, which an awful lot of the community do with Heresy. It's quite different, but I wasn't too worried. I thought it was mainly going to be a painting project for me, an army for the shelf that I could dust off and maybe have an occasional game with. It won't be something I plan to engage with all the time, week in, week out, like I do with Warhammer the Old World. And then the rules were leaked, and I don't know how much of the rules were leaked to start with. I didn't go and read any of the leaks, not through any reason other than I wasn't too worried about what the rules were. As I said, I was not playing the game, so I didn't quite have that drive to go and see what's changed. And change is always a difficult thing for war gamers. I was more interested in reaction to them, and that people were very, very upset, and maybe quite rightly so at the time, and what they perceived to be, and maybe what has happened, is a removal of a lot of the rules, the core rules, for certain units, which meant collections that people have had for in excess of a decade maybe not work, and you might not be able to play them. Whole units, whole armies of people that have converted and built couldn't work, and it didn't look great. It turns out that some of the changes were sort of communicated by GW, but maybe not in the best way through Warcom articles, and we knew that a lot of rules were going to be included in a legacy document, which has now been released, and I've held off this video until that was out. And again, some people still don't like what's in the legacy document, but it's over 200 pages, and it seems that most of the stuff that was omitted from the printed books has been back in there, and it's by design. And this is about, I think, pretty sensible to think this is about Games Workshop moving towards all plastic in the future. It's got to be their goal as a business, and making sure that the rules align with what's in the boxes, so that when someone goes into a shop and wants to start the game and they want to run a something unit, they can pick up the box and they've got everything they need. And there are some anomalies, there's some things that didn't quite match up with that, but on the whole I think that's what they were trying to do. But as usual with Games Workshop, they don't always communicate things quite in black and white. They're very sort of fluffy around the edges with things. A lot of the dramas like this, which you'll always get with changes to edition, can be offset by a clearer communication that this Games Workshop just doesn't do. It's not their style. But there was anger from the community. It was more than just a little bit of sort of upheaval. There was real, genuine anger, and as always with anger, people struggle to communicate that in an appropriate way. And then the name calling was beyond the pale in some cases, and they started calling out some of the content creators that had early access, and a guy called Pardo from SM Battle Report. So I don't really know directly, but we definitely had some contact with him through the Geno days, the podcast days, and Tom was invited to Gibraltar, and he took part in one of the earlier Heresy events when he was still doing 40k ones as well. But the level of anger towards some of the creators was crazy. It was very vitriolic, very kind of you should have let us know they've cut all this out, you're a shill, as you always get as a creator anyway. You should have let us know, you had a duty to community to let us know that they were wrecking our game. Really crazy kind of stuff. I mean, an NDA is an NDA, it's a legal thing. You're not allowed to talk about what you're sent by an NDA. It's as simple as that. So there's no way they could have told you those things, and chances are they wouldn't have known what was going to be in those books and what was going to be in the legacies until they received those books, and they may have only received them a short period of time. And that's going on my experience of when I get stuff to do with the Old World and Middle Earth, etc. So really crazy stuff, and creators get an awful lot of grief for being shills, and I've got to, you've got to expect that a little bit. We're seen as fronts for the company. We don't get paid for making videos. We get 3 miniatures and 3 books, and that's it. It's a complete myth that we have to say nice things about them. Absolute complete myth. I'm not supposed to talk about my NDA, but I think it's fair enough to say that, and I've mentioned it before. It's an absolute complete myth. If you video you make slags off Games Workshop, then maybe they will not renew your part of the creator program, because that would make sense. Why would they give someone who's making completely negative content about them free stuff? But as long as you're fair and balanced, and this is what they say, you're allowed to criticise stuff, just do it fair and balanced, and make sure that if there's good stuff as well, you highlight the good stuff about things. And I think you see that with an awful lot of creators. So as a little aside there, that's my defence of creators in that sense. At the end of the day, we're going to sum it all up very early in the video. What's gone wrong is a little bit of lack of communication, or better communication. Could have led to slightly less anger from the community, and then from the community side of it, the behaviour of a few, and it's always a minority, but a loud vocal minority, has been unforgivable in the way they have targeted people, because they're angry with Games Workshop. It's absolutely crazy, and there's a few people that have gone down in my estimation by the way they've reacted. And like I said, I can understand the frustrations. If I had stayed in the game and had all my existing armies, I may well have had things that for that short period of a week or so would have been deemed as unplayable. And we have to understand here that people were reacting to leaks. This is before the official release of the rules, and I think that the actual document, the legacy document, was if you took it past the official release, was only a few days afterwards, a week or so afterwards maybe. So even then, people would have still been angry for that short period, and maybe that should have been ready to go on release day. And maybe the communication from Games Workshop could have been a lot clearer. Yes, there's a line in an article, and it's mentioned before, and a lot of people who were aware that these things were happening, that there would be legacied units, but and weapons, not just units, but weapon types. But the same time of that, you're finding out information early and going after people for information you shouldn't have, etc., and reacting. It's really mindless. Other things I saw that I really didn't like. Alan Bly, who worked for Forge World, wrote many books, many Black books, Imperial Armour books, Tamarkan for Warhammer, and pretty much was the original author for all of the Black books. And as Heresy became a thing, early days, is absolutely worshipped by many of the Heresy community, which is fine, absolutely fine. I love his writing too, and he passed away, I think, in 2017. And it was sad at the time, but people treat him now a little bit like a god, and some of the comments that I've found particularly distasteful were these rules are abomination and disrespectful to Alan Bly's memory and things like that, which is just absolutely ridiculous, and I think disrespectful, as I've said, to, in most cases, someone that most of these commenters have never even met. I've never met him, and I think trying to put words into a deceased person's mouths and to enhance your own rage is poor. Again, just shows real distaste, alongside, as I said, all the abuse that certain creators got, and then just the general kind of shouting at each other, but not just angry, but really shouting down anyone who might want to continue playing the new edition stuff. I was arriving back into a game potentially and looking at it all and thinking, whoa, this is a hot mess and not a very inviting place, and more than the kind of anger you usually see for games edition changes. It had a different edge to it, and certain aspects on corners of the community was even more, and some of those are content creators as well, not ones that are affiliated. Some of the things they've said in certain videos they make is pretty poor. They definitely fuel it and fuel that kind of anger, and for those few days around those initial leaks, there were so many memes to do with Paul Pardo that weren't very nice. He handled it very well and sort of pushed back at it in a funny way, but it just showed a side of the wargaming community as a whole that I thought was pretty disgusting, and glad we don't see that too often, and very nearly put me off. Maybe very nearly just made me think I'm not going anywhere near this game because of some of those reactions. Now it turns out people's armies have not been completely trashed at all. Some of the reaction for the community, and I'm not talking about the extreme reactions, I'm talking about the genuine unhappiness of certain players, may have led to that Legacies document being expanded. We don't know, unless Games Workshop come out and make a statement. Either way, we're not going to know, but it was a few days late, so maybe they were adding some things in and making sure it was that little bit cleaner and tighter. But I still would gather that it's such a huge document that most of that would have been written a long time ago and would have been ready. So definitely no excuse for the behaviour. But could that have been communicated better? I think so, and I think we see this a lot with Warcom. There's often a bit of a disconnect with Warcom, and I'm not criticising anyone that works for them either, because they're all doing their different jobs in different departments. Sometimes there's a little bit of disconnect with the design teams, I think. But then also, again, you have to make things super clear to gamers. We're actually all pretty smart, otherwise we wouldn't be able to play a lot of these games. But also, if you put a lot of information in one document and hide some of those bits in the middle, some people will miss it. They won't read to the bottom. We know this as a society. People read headlines. They don't read all the way down to the full article. I definitely think they could have made it a lot clearer that you will notice something's missing from these new books that are coming out. Don't panic. It's going to be in here, rather than just a paragraph. Almost make it the whole article and make it a little bit clearer. Something else we don't get the benefit of enough is because we don't have open days with the studio members talking to members of the community and you're able to ask questions, because that doesn't exist anymore. We lose a little bit of sort of extra information that's there, and that's fine if they want to control that, but again, they need different access to it. Now, I am a subscriber to Warhammer TV, partly because of the channel, because you find extra information out there. I don't think it's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but there are really good interviews with members of different teams that talk about their games and the direction and things they're going in. But a lot of that's behind a paywall. I don't know if there is for Heresy. I haven't seen one yet for Heresy, but if I use an example for Old World, Rob and Holly were there discussing the Old World map in detail and talking about all the little things that are coming up on there. And the kind of information that was in that video would shut down some of the ideas around what's going on and why this has appeared on the map. In some cases, he's not there for any other reason than they're creating a setting where you can look at a place and a title and a name and think, oh, something might happen there one day, or I can make my own story up there. It doesn't mean everything is going to be covered. And that's just a little example. But some of these creator style interviews where you really got the opportunity to talk openly about what's coming in the future would be really good. And I think it would really help to have some of this stuff on their YouTube channel, not behind the paywall, so they can communicate a little bit better with the communities out there, explaining what's going on. If there was a big 20-minute interview before the launch explaining all of this, saying, yes, we've got these books coming out, some stuff will be missing, don't worry, we've got this Legacies document coming along, and the reason we've done that is because of this. But they won't communicate that kind of stuff. They're not going to come out and say we aim to remove all plastic in 10 years time or whatever it happens to be, because I'm sure this is a lot behind it. They're not going to always say we want to make sure the rules only match what's in the box. Maybe they would, maybe they won't. But the benefit of Legacy over something like Old World is that these are Warhammer World official. These are event official, which isn't the same for the Legacy armies in Old World. Those Legacy armies are unofficial and won't be updated now. It's slightly different for Heresy, so they are definitely aware of their community and keeping an eye on community collections, and they're not just invalidating everything. It's just not an official shiny book now, for probably commercial reasons. I've listened to a few of the arguments from members of the Heresy community, proper, nice arguments, positive arguments about how the community is maybe different from other war games, about the fact that it's based around painting and modelling. Now, I think some of that is a little bit insular. They're not wrong, but also other game systems have a high level of painting and modelling and conversions as well. And it's very easy when you're in a community, and I was probably the same when I was in the Heresy community, thinking that the Heresy community was the absolute best at that. Outside of it now, not at all. It's just different style of painting in some ways, but they definitely do lots of conversion and modelling and customization in Old World and in AOS and even 40k and other game systems as well. So I'm not, that's not something to be cross at them about when you're in a community. That's sometimes the way you feel. But that player base definitely feels that. They definitely feel that there's this military modelling thing. And Forge World used to produce books that showed you how to do things that were using other companies' products and things for military modelling and oil washes and all this kind of stuff. And that's great. And that's kind of caught up now with the identity of the Heresy community. So maybe that's why some of the anger's so strong when they feel that all this love they've put in for years over just focusing on one legion or something is suddenly all thrown away, which is not, by the way, because the Legacy document has fixed that completely. But who knows in the future? Next edition, maybe that Legacy document won't be there. So the slow move on towards just what's in the box, and that might be something we need to get our heads around as gamers, because that might well happen in Old World as well, and other games systems as the company changes. Both Middle-earth and Old World have got a huge amount of metal miniatures that's kind of holding up their ranges, really, and ideally they'd need to be changed. And the same with resin in the future, if we are moving towards this plastic future, which I think we are. And you can see this general change anyway with the way at least SDS are releasing things. We have journals now for Horus Heresy, and I really enjoy the journals for the Old World, and apparently we've had them for Blood Bowl, I think, in that sort of style, and they've just announced the first one for Middle Earth. So these 48-page booklets, because of that's the way printers work, and that's the perfect number, is going to be something we see. I think a lot of rules will be returned through those that are missing, and maybe at the same time as some new miniatures. But are they going to be able to replace everything? Maybe not, and we will see a narrowing of the ranges. If I put my new player for Heresy hat on, I think the start set's fantastic. There'll always be some miniatures that some people don't like and some do. I'm not too worried about that. That's just, we all like different aesthetics. The rule book is beautifully produced. The lore is really nicely written. It looks like a really good set of rules. Much better than what I was used to in the first edition. Genuinely looks like a game that's going to be fun to play. And I think it's really, really good. If you aside from all the legacy bits, the actual the Liber books, the Army List books, again, aside from the missing content which is now being replaced elsewhere, I think they're presented very well, and it's very clear and easy to read as well. So I'm excited to do my army project, whatever that happens to be. It's probably going to be Lunar Wolves. I really love the Great Crusade stuff. Need to pick up some decals from somewhere. I don't know what else to do. Maybe Iron Warriors, because I love doing that paint scheme, but I'm not so excited by that Legion or the lore, so it's more about the paint scheme. But I absolutely love the initial trilogy, and I love Loken, and I've read all those books so many times, and I'm always drawn back to those almost as comfort books now. And I love the idea of the end of the Great Crusade and doing Lunar Wars rather than Sons of Horus. So that's currently where I'm at, and a future video to maybe look forward to if you want to see that on the channel. So I think it looks pretty good. I'm really excited by the Arcane Journals. I think I'll pick those up. I may do little reviews of those in the future. because it's a narrative-based thing, and it's something that I enjoy enjoying covering. So we will see with that, but as it stands, I'll definitely be doing some painting content, and we'll see with the rest and see how the community settles down now that this legacy document's out. I hope it does, and I hope we don't see a return to some of that really horrible stuff. Genuinely, the first time I've seen horrible stuff. The internet's wild as it is. I get that. I'm not new to the internet, but within a community that, for all the people I've met in person, are absolutely brilliant people, and really friendly, and I had so much fun when I was part of the Geno 5.2 and running all the Tarsus events with Tom at Incom Gaming. And to be clear, I've not seen any of those people behaving badly on the internet around this. They may have done, I just haven't seen it. But still, some of the names and things I knew from back then, it did surprise me and disappoint me, and enough that I nearly had a wobble and thought, no, I'm not going to buy this, that's disgusting. And I hope we don't see that again. Usually when these things happen, they stay out of the bag, unfortunately. I'd hate to see that reaction to a new edition of Old World, regardless of how the community sees it. And just to prove how hard it is to make modern plastic miniatures and how long they take, all I've built for this paint-an, which is really a build and chat today, is the Saturnine character. It's really cool. Really enjoy these new miniatures. They're a bit Marmite for some people, but I really like them, and I really like the Mark II in there as well, partly why I'm interested in doing Lunar Wars as well, because it would be perfect for that late Crusade kind of vibe going on, which would be really cool. When I was searching through for photos for this, I found a picture of me reading Black Book 8. At that stage, I think we'd already stopped the Geno, and I was holding my second child, feeding him. So he was obviously just months old. He's 6 now, so it's been a while since I've played any Heresy. I don't know if I even bought book 9 in the end. I can't remember if I did, but either way, it's been a long time. So I've been away for a while playing other games, and it's nice to see many of the same names and faces. But as I said, also sad to see some of the community be so ingrained in their own view of how the game should be played and how it should be presented that they took it out on other people. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope if you disagree with me and the points I was making, it's not got you too upset. Hope you appreciate that it comes from a genuine point of wanting the community to be relatively happy. I try to make my content kind of positive, and that's not because I'm a shill, it's just because this is a safe place for me, the hobby. I love doing hobby. It's a really good place for mental health for so many people, and it gets a little bit tiring sometimes when there's big drama and lots of upset online, and I appreciate I've got to be a big boy and expect that as well. And I make content partly for a living now, and I'm well aware that that is what the internet is about. But if you do disagree with me, very happy for you to do that politely and respectfully in the comments below. I'm very, very open to those kind of conversations. I definitely won't have got everything right, and my mind can be changed. But if you know some of the things that I've covered in the video and some of the things I dislike, so if you want to comment like that, then maybe I won't be quite as polite back, but we will see. For those of you who are regular viewers of the channel, I normally cover other game systems and things. Hopefully you found that interesting. There will be a little bit of content going forward on Heresy, but as it stands, I think I'll mostly be covering painting. I may cover some of the journals because they interest me. I'm definitely not going to get down and dirty in terms of big rules discussion and things like that, because I'll be playing very, very occasionally. I love it, as I've already said. A lot of passion around the heresy and the narrative and the novels and things that have been driving my enjoyment of Heresy and keeping it going in the background while I've played other games. But it's not going to be my main game, but there will definitely be stuff on the channel. I do more Heresy painting than anything else, as I've probably already said ad nauseum. But thank you very much for watching it anyway. If you have enjoyed it, please do give me a like, comment below, keep it respectful, as I've already said. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Maybe it's brought you here. There will be more Heresy stuff, and I'm planning a big video when I talk about painting that whole box. So it's probably all in one video. It may separate out into the odd tutorial, but if I stick with the plan I've currently got, I think it's all going to be one video, so there's something to look forward to in the future. If you'd like to support the channel even more, please do check out all the links in my video description. Check out the channel sponsor, Counterattack Bases, and check out my Patreon. It's a really great way of supporting me and the channel and keep making content like this, and maybe content not like this, or the hobby stuff and things that may be a little bit more beneficial to those of you who are watching the channel. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.
Bye.